welcome back to Underreported Stories, where I cover the news that CNN, MSNBC, and Fox News fail to report on or don't report on enough. And I can't even get into the stories without starting off the show by expressing my true sadness about what's going on in the Middle East right now. I'm going to break it all down for you to better understand, but as I'm recording this, there are at least 500 rockets that have been launched into Israel from Iran, which is really, the sites are devastating. There are already people who have lost their lives. It has been confirmed that at least one of the people dead is a Palestinian man as well. So yeah, we're going to get into all of that, as well as I was making the show today, and I just completely forgot to do a docket. So we're just going to fly by the seat of our pants today. And you guys know it's wedding week, it's wedding week, it's wedding week. So we're going to talk about the sad, we're going to talk about the happy, we're going to talk about the stories, we're going to talk about the debate, and that's the docket I have for you today. So let's launch into the whole Israel thing. So Israel, over the last few days, has been launching rockets into Lebanon. Now, Lebanon, good buddies with Iran, okay? They're very similar, and we can get into all of that, but Israel had launched some rockets into southern Lebanon in hopes of killing top Hezbollah. Hezbollah is a terrorist group located in Lebanon, in hopes of taking out some of their infrastructure. And then yesterday, which would have been Monday, Israel launched a ground invasion into southern Lebanon, and they are now currently under fire from rockets being launched into the country completely indiscriminately at civilians in Tel Aviv, the biggest city there, okay? Just not targeted at anything, targeted just at killing people. That's the rockets that are coming from Iran, okay? There have been 500 rockets launched into the country, into Israel, by Iran. And there is a very common misconception that you're going to hear in the news, and if I could ask you to take away one thing from today's show, it would be this. There is this long-standing myth, I want to say, that Hezbollah, which is the terrorist organization that operates in Lebanon, is just this affiliate of Iran. It's not an affiliate. The IRGC, which is the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps, or whatever they're called, they're terrorist wing / army of Iran. They pay money to Hezbollah. Like, Iranian leadership directly funds Lebanon. If I was being directly funded by, let's say, the Republican Party, I wouldn't be an affiliate of the Republican Party. I would be part of the Republican Party because I am directly on their payroll. I am directly getting resources from them. We would have no qualms about saying that. So it is quite the myth to say that Hezbollah is an affiliate of Iran. It is Iran. And that's why it's not odd, per se, that Iran is shooting rockets into Israel. Now, of course, my heart hurts because this is like the Holy Land. As a Christian, I am in favor of Israel and its existence. And as a moral person, I also think that if you're going to have to choose between countries that promote terrorism and a country that promotes general peace in the Middle East and stands for pretty Western values, I'm going to pick the country with Western values. But this isn't a debate about Israel versus Palestine. This is just really, really sad what is happening over there. But I actually was going to talk about Israel on today's show before all of the rockets started launching. That was just kind of a bonus thing I wanted to talk about with you guys because it's just happening right now. But this morning, you guys know, anybody that's watched the show for 5 minutes knows, I love to talk about my morning news reading habits. So I'm reading my morning news this morning, and everything I clicked on, every news outlet, they all started with Israel launches ground invasion into Lebanon. Now, we started the show with talking about that today. Of course, it's a big deal, okay? Obviously, war in general is a very big deal. But you would think that, how do I put this? The ground strike into Israel, or the ground invasion of Israel into Lebanon, is one thing. Rockets being fired into Israel from Iran is another. That is borderline World War III. Israel going in and doing like an on-the-ground operation, I don't think that was necessarily like the premise for World War III, the way that 500 rockets being shot indiscriminately at civilians is going to now start potentially World War III. But the main story on every single news outlet today was all about Israel launching this ground invasion. Of course it's important, but you'd think that there was nothing massive going on in the US because this Israel story is the top story everywhere. And to me, this might just an observation. It was almost like the media, specifically this was happening in left-wing media, was trying to use a story that they know is going to piss every liberal off. Evil BBs attacking Lebanon, right? And they're using that to distract from the massive debate that's happening tonight between Tim Walz and J.D. Vance. And more importantly, the massive dock workers strike that's about to happen that is going to destroy our economy if nobody changes anything. It's wild, and it's very clearly a distraction tactic. Like, I see right through you. Don't think for a second I don't see you. It was very interesting. But let me know your thoughts in the comments. Do you think that I'm just getting this wrong and all Americans really care about the Israeli ground strikes or ground invasion? Honestly, I don't think Americans care about that as much as they care about the dock worker strikes or the debate that's happening tonight. Whether I agree with that or not, I just think that's the truth. Most Americans don't care about what's happening thousands of miles away from them. But the media would love to divert your attention that way. Just noticing something. But anyway, like I said, we were going to cover some heavy topics at the front, but I want to keep this uplifting. As you guys notice, if you're watching today's show on YouTube, Rumble, X, or Facebook, I'm wearing a bride shirt, okay? If you're in the listening audience, well, I'm wearing a bride shirt, okay? And that is because I'm getting married this week. It's the last episode of the week, okay? I am not going to be doing the show on Thursday because why would I do that? I have a party bus to go on, guys. Priorities here in life. I just think it's going to be so much fun. My family's already in town too, so like I said, I prepped today's show differently because I'm just so excited to go be with my family. We just put an offer on a house. Now, mind you, that could not work out at all. We really lowballed them, so we'll see. But my life is just changing in ways that I can't even describe, and there's just so much going on. So I'm very anxious. I'm very excited. It's so crazy because anxiety and excitement, they're the same emotion, or they come out in the same way, but they're not the same emotion. But I feel so much anxiety, but so much excitement. It's just crazy. You know, I've been planning this for so long. Jake and I first went to look at rings together in December of 2022. So I've kind of had this been in bride mentality in some way, shape, or form since December of 2022, which is like almost 2 years ago. So to see all of the hard work and all of the thoughts and energy and visions I've had start to come to life, I'm so excited. Okay, but before we get into the stories, there was one other topic I wanted to talk about. Sorry, I'm like teasing you guys today real hard. So I want to talk about this Newsweek article because it's everywhere on X right now. It was titled, How Hot Girls Became the Right's New Obsession. And the premise of this article is that conservatives are just so obsessed with hot women, which is a really odd take because are liberal men not obsessed with hot women? Are liberals anti-hot women? Like, I don't really get this take. It was a weird take. And you can read the article, just Google like hot girls Newsweek or something like that. I don't think this is a new obsession. I don't know if Newsweek or Newsweek journalists never got out of the house, but it's weird. I posted to Twitter a tweet about this. I was saying hot girls aren't inherently conservative. It's just that hot girls take care of themselves. They go to the gym, they shave their armpits, there's a lot of upkeep that it takes to be an attractive person on males or females. It takes a lot of work, right? You're going to the gym, you're constantly keeping the upkeep. It takes time to do your eyebrows, and for some women get Botox and color their hair, all the things that keep you traditionally hot. Then couple that with, hot people traditionally, you say, I'm going to venture to say 9 times out of 10, they're not obsessed with politics. They have other hobbies. They have other things that they think about other than how the patriarchy is holding them down or random shit like that. And so when I heard this, I was like, hot has just become synonymous with conservative, not because every hot girl is conservative, but because online liberals have become so fucking weird that if you're semi-hot, you look conservative. I was just making this point not that long ago. I did a whole video on this girl named Jordan Is My Lawyer. She runs a podcast called Unbiased, and she does news from an unbiased point of view, and she was getting wrecked online by social justice warriors, and they were shitting on her for being conservative, even though there wasn't a modicum of evidence to show that she's conservative. I was just saying liberals are super biased towards pretty people because they associate pretty people with conservatives. It's not a conservative thing. It's just like a general feeling, a general sentiment we have all felt in the culture. And that's why videos asking people like, who's hotter, conservative or liberal? Those go mega viral because it's something we've all just noticed. Like, hot women tend to be conservative. It's just a thing. Let me know if you noticed that as well. But there was one other note I wanted to make about this article before we get into the stories. There is a study I mention all the time, and it's because the numbers are so easy to remember. There has been a 26-point shift in men under the age of 26 who are now identifying as conservative. So if you're under the age of 26, you're Gen Z, you have seen 26 points or 26% basically shift in men now identifying as conservative. Yeah. That's because men like hot women, and if hot women are conservative, then they're going to go be conservative. Like, it's really not that hard to piece together Newsweek. Just a thought. But let me know if you guys read the article, or if you have any other thoughts, please feel free to share them. All right. Without further ado, let me stop teasing you. Let's get into the 5 underreported stories that you need to know. And the 5 underreported stories that you need to know is brought to you by Freedom 2.0. What the hell is in your water? You probably don't know, and if it's not Freedom 2.0, it might be time to reconsider. Freedom 2.0's award-winning water goes beyond the bottle with an 8-step filtration process that includes reverse osmosis, UV light treatment, and an infusion of 432 hertz, the body's natural healing frequency. It's not just about hydration, it's about providing your body with clean, pure energy, free from the sugars and additives that other brands sneak into your water, right? Why settle for anything less than the best? Freedom 2.0 is hydration redefined. If you are ready to make this switch and help out this show, be sure to click the link in the show notes, the first one, and you can elevate your hydration game today. All right, let's get into our first story. So a leading psychiatrist was fired for expressing concern about gender reassignment surgery for minors. Dr. Alan Josephson was terminated from the University of Louisville in 2019 for expressing concerns about gender dysphoria and the surgeries for gender dysphoric minors. The weird part of this story is that the comments never took place in the classroom. So it wasn't like Dr. Josephson was saying to a classroom of students that gender dysphoric minors shouldn't have access to healthcare. Or that's not even what he said. He said gender dysphoric minors should probably not be given life-altering surgeries and puberty blockers and whatnot, which is really not a crazy take. But those comments that he did make, which that's kind of the gist of what he said, they weren't made in the classroom. He made those comments, the professor, on a panel for the nonprofit, the conservative nonprofit, the Heritage Foundation. And this was outside and apart from his university work. And then after those comments were made, within a 2-year time span, this professor was constantly being discriminated against from the school, and the school ultimately terminated him and didn't even deny that it fired him over those specific comments. So naturally, all of us are like, okay, well, that's a free speech violation, quite clearly, right? Because the university can't fire somebody for the free speech that they have, their own opinions. But secondly, even if those comments were made in the classroom, I still think that's his right to do so. but they weren't even made at the classroom. They were made at a Heritage Foundation panel where he was asked for his analysis as a well-esteemed psychologist. He's well within his rights to do that. There's no academic contract that prohibits you from doing that. And so obviously Dr. Josephson proceeded to sue the university for this. And a court very recently ruled in favor of Dr. Josephson. And it wasn't just a total, oh, yeah, you won, free speech win, victory, yay. That's not what happened here. Basically, a court ruled that his case can now go to trial. So a jury can now come in and decide whether the university actually violated Dr. Josephson's free speech. So that's kind of the gist of the story. I am very curious, though, where do you guys think these universities get this audacity? I mean, I'm going to go out on a limb and say that the students are the ones complaining, but there's this fine line that no one likes to discuss because it's down the middle and people don't like to discuss down the middle things. But there is this very fine line between giving college students autonomy and control over their education because you want them to specialize things that actually matter. You want to give them control of the way that they grow and flourish in those 4 years of college and explore and whatnot. There's a difference between that and then letting the crazies run the asylum. And really what we've realized over the last couple of years, I would say the last 15 to 20 years, is that the college kids probably don't deserve as much control and autonomy over their education as they think they do. Because it just results in professors getting fired for completely normal reactions, and it's really not doing much for the college students. Actually, it's a very interesting trend. Maybe I'll have to make a video on it at a separate time. But there's a interesting trend going on right now talking about how all the Gen Zers are getting fired. And as a Gen Zer who has been fired, I've been laid off twice and fired once. And I've held four or five jobs. I'm on my fifth job now, which is crazy. And I'm a conservative and I'm a very, very hard worker. I'm not going to defend myself. Some of them were extenuating circumstances, so I don't hold it against myself. But there is a trend where this is happening, where just Gen Zers are unable to stay employed. And a lot of it has to do with this idea that these crazy education systems allow the students to have so much control over everything that's happening in their 4 years of college that they get out into the real world and they're like, everyone wants me to succeed. Everyone wants me to do good things. The world is set up for me. I'm going to come in and I'm going to bring my dumbass ideas into the workspace and everyone's going to love them. That's certainly not the case. All these companies care about is the bottom line. Are you going to contribute to making the bottom line good, or are you going to contribute to making the bottom line lower? That's all they care about. And when you don't realize that, you become a horrible employee because you think that the company cares about, giving you mental health days or some crap like that. They give that to you as a handout type of deal. They're usually taking some sort of benefit away from you when they're doing that. But Gen Z just hasn't woken up to that, and it's very interesting. And they're pretty much unemployable. And I think that the university systems that go about problems, I'll say, in the same manner that they're handling this, where they're allowing the kids to just say, oh, we don't like that professor's thought, get him out. Or we don't like this about the school, change it. We're paying for the school, therefore we need to do it. There is this fine line where you need to tell students, no. In some cases, the universities need to have the balls to say, absolutely not, you're done. We're keeping this professor. This is his free speech. You don't have to like it. You don't even have to take that class. But we need to keep him in place. And again, I think it's kind of a circular argument, though, because a lot of the professors that are in these classes or the teaching these classes or are administrators at these universities, they also hold the same beliefs as some of these crazy students, and they've been given too much control as well. I want to get to our second story, which is another story about free speech, one that is kind of an update of sorts, actually. So the satirical news outlet, the Babylon Bee, if you don't know what the Babylon Bee is, what are you, crazy? How? Just type in Babylon Bee, you'll thank me later. Anyway, the Babylon Bee is a satirical news site, and it filed a lawsuit against California on Monday. So we talked about this on the show, maybe 2 or 3 weeks ago. But a couple of months ago, Elon Musk reposted this parody video. It was a Kamala Harris campaign ad, it couldn't have been more of a joke, you guys. If you go back to the show, it was so funny. I believe it was our Thursday, September 19th show, if you're looking for it. It was very, very funny. So what it would have been, 3 shows ago? 3 shows ago, we were talking about this story. And in that show, you can see the Kamala campaign ad it was clearly Kamala's voice as AI. But Gavin Newsom saw this. He's the governor of California. And he thought that AI clearly parody ads should be illegal. And so over the course between July and September, he took action and passed a law that forbids political expression that is considered deceptive content. And that includes parody videos. This is temporary, though, I will add, the parody video ban. So basically what the bill reads is that parody videos and deepfakes are not allowed in California within 120 days before the election day, so November 5th, and then 60 days after election day. But the Babylon Bee is now suing to stop this. They're suing to stop the state because it appears that they've targeted satire. The state has targeted satire and parody outlets. So they're arguing basically that California is targeting their news outlet. Now, obviously, you guys know my thoughts on Newsom's law and the regulations or restrictions around AIs and deepfakes. I understand the problem about it, but we have laws in place for a reason when it comes to free speech and our ability to express ourselves. If you are so dumb that you can't figure out that a Kamala Harris campaign ad that calls herself a deep state puppet isn't a joke, you probably aren't smart enough to vote. And I would just venture to say, please don't vote in this election. You're not smart enough if you can't figure out the difference between that. And I think that's what's irritating about Gavin Newsom is he needs to baby and coddle people. If people can't figure out between real news and fake news, yes, I know it's become increasingly difficult in this new age of digital media. Trust me, I know. I would love to not have a podcast. I would love to just be able to go into the ether and never talk about underreported stories because the media was just doing their job and doing it incredibly. But trust me, I understand. But Gavin Newsom's inability to let people think for themselves or figure things out for themselves is like the nanny state times 1,000, right? I will say, I wanted to pose this question to the audience because I am curious if the left knew how to meme, hypothetically, obviously they can't, and the right was the one taking the barbs for deepfakes. Do you think it would change your opinion on this? Do you think you'd be like, yeah, we should outlaw this? Because if there were just all these videos of fake Trump campaign ads, do you think that conservatives would be on the opposing end of this? I don't know. Or like, would they be willing to change this and implement this? Although, to be fair, California is not the only state putting out laws like this. I think there are like 14 other states. California is just the only one that's taken it a step further and said something along the lines of, we're outlawing parody. And they don't say that expressly, but they are outlawing parody. But we'll see how this plays out. Because the Babylon Bee's lawsuit, I think they have a really good case. Don't get me wrong. This is a violation of free speech. It's not just like the Babylon Bee suing. There's a bunch of conservative organizations backing this. So I definitely think they have a shot at winning. The question is, do they have a shot at winning something like this in a timely manner? Because this is already enacted, this law, and it is going to impact the election. And so I just have my doubts that the court is going to move quickly enough to warrant any change in behavior or action before the election comes. I guess it's always good to take action because it's not like they knew well in advance. Like they took action when they saw a problem and they're trying to rectify it. But I don't know if a judge can issue an injunction and say, hey, you can't do that. You got to nix the law while we're waiting in the interim for this lawsuit to go through. It will be very interesting to see. But I definitely have my doubts about whether this is actually going to be, whether this is actually going to do anything or move the needle writ large. But anyway, something I would love to something I would love to see change is our illegal immigration crisis. And we talk about this probably every show, but this number is going to blow your freaking mind, actually. So I was reading this report from the Federalist this morning. Turns out more than 647,000, that's over 500,000, it's almost to 250,000 illegal immigrants who are convicted or suspected of assault, homicide, or other heinous crimes. Let me underline, emphasize, bold, heinous. These are not just crimes. These are assault, homicide, heinous crimes. These people, 647,000 of them, are roaming free throughout the United States. And we don't even know this from our federal government. We know this because the deputy director of ICE wrote a letter to a congressman disclosing this information, and then that congressman made it public to us, which is just pathetic that our federal government wouldn't do anything about this. Fucking twats they are, truly. But here's the information. Here's the story. So, July of 2024, this is the data that we have. 425,431 non-citizens who are convicted of criminal offenses, as well as 222,141 non-citizens with pending criminal charges are roaming free through this country. They're not in the custody of ICE. They're just out there. I am truly, when I say this, putting politics aside. I do not see in any world where a normal liberal would look at those numbers and say, yeah, those people should be here. No, absolutely. I talk about this a lot. And I even talked about it at the top of the show. And I was saying that, not all hot people are conservative. It just feels that way. Not all Democrats are crazy. Not all liberals are crazy. And I genuinely, wholeheartedly believe that the two things I will just go to the top of the hills, go to my grave on, is that most liberals don't think that illegal immigrants who are criminals should just be roaming our streets. And they also don't believe in this whole trans ideology crap. They just are going along with it to get along, okay? Those are my two hills I'll fucking die on. And when it comes to illegal immigration, if you don't know this, if you are a legal citizen, as someone who came and immigrated to this country, you get in so much trouble with the law in any minor offense. Nonetheless, a major offense. Oh, your ass is on a plane home. Why is the same not true of illegal immigrants? I mean, I know, everybody knows, everyone feels frustrated. I don't want to be another conservative commentator being like, oh my gosh, illegal immigrants, wow. I get it, it's fucking annoying. It's so fucking annoying to constantly hear about the influx of criminals into this country. Stop. Fucking deport them. If they hit a major crime, if they are assaulting people, if they are murdering people, if they are, committing massive heinous crimes, you're gone. Why is that so hard? We can disagree about a lot of things when it comes to illegal immigration, but this should be really easy to agree on. You commit a crime, you're gone. It's so simple. And I know that the average liberal agrees with me. So I know I'm not out of touch here talking about this from some woo-woo conspiracy conservative place. No, that's not what's happening. No. Other people who are on the left feel this way too. Democrats are so freaking out of touch with their base. They have no idea what's going on. They're living in la-la land. Oh my gosh. And did you guys see that Kamala finally went to the border? Ooh, congrats, you're a little late. You're a little late. I was listening to one of my friends. His name's Lou Hawley. He was talking on his YouTube channel, and it was so funny. He put it in such a great way, saying that Kamala Harris is like an ex or a soon-to-be ex, where you're in a relationship and you just want that person to pay attention to you, and you're like, please, please. And so you threaten to break up with her or him. And all of a sudden, she or he starts to change and show up and do the things you wanted them to do all along, because they're toxic. And that's exactly what Kamala Harris is doing at the border. She realizes it's one of her weakest issues, even though she's been a border czar for 4 years. And now all of a sudden she's like, okay, I'm going to do something about it. Okay, Kamala, you could have done something about it the whole time. You could do something about it right now. But she doesn't want to. She doesn't want to. It's very evident. Anyway, I'm going to sweat out of my damn sweatshirt, and you can see pit stains in white. So I guess I got to move on. Clearly I need to move on. All right, guys, let's get into our next story. So much for happy and uplifting. I'm full of shit today, right? Okay, for real, next story. I have decided to coin a new phrase, and I'm sure I'm not like the first person to do this, but in my mind I am. So I'm coining the phrase, the climate industrial complex, because it's like a riff off of the military industrial complex. Everybody, right, left, center, we're all bitching about the military industrial complex except for Nikki Haley, right? But I have my question for you. Where are the complaints for the climate industrial complex? Because it exists. And this story that I'm about to bring to you, it really gives such good insight into the way that DC is operating, and climate change has just become this new way to funnel money to Democratic activists. So here's the story. Bear with me, it's kind of difficult, but I feel like per usual, I'm trying my best to explain it to you in a very easy to understand manner. So this is exemplified, this climate industrial complex growth is exemplified, I should say, by a woman named Carol Browner. And Carol used to work for the Obama administration. And now, after working in the White House, she advises for a company called Blue Whale Materials. It's a recycling company that pushes for green initiatives. If you're looking for, another example, think of it as Nikki Haley works in White House. Nikki Haley now advises for Boeing, okay? Everybody found that to be problematic. And so this Carol character is kind of doing the same thing. The problem with Carol is that while she works as a lobbyist, she also works while she works for a nonprofit, she's also lobbying the government for legislation that ultimately funds the clients that she has, like Blue Whale Materials, okay? So what's happening is that Carol uses her connections to the White House to push for legislation that gives money to her clients. And we know this because the Biden-Harris administration just announced a $55.2 million grant to Blue Whale Materials. So that's interesting. She's basically helping to using her government connections to funnel money to her clients. And as a cherry on top, I'm not saying that that's illegal. I'm just pointing out that this has been considered problematic when the military industrial complex does it, right? Cherry on top, Carol's nonprofit also spent $55 million in ads for Kamala Harris. So that's so interesting, huh? It's interesting because the liberals love to play this like holier than thou game while also creating another industrial complex to enrich their preferred groups to get rich off of the climate ideology wars, which are the very thing that they claim to hate. Just how have we let it get this far? How did we not learn from history that the climate change thing was a whole scam? Like, I know conservatives were talking about it, but we weren't looking at the industry or the I'm trying to think of the right word. Sorry, your podcast didn't stop. I'm just trying to think of the right word. I guess the infrastructure is the right word. The infrastructure for something like this. We just let everything that happened with the military industrial complex copy and paste happen in the climate world. Now they're using climate change as a way to enrich each other. It's ridiculous. And by the way, I could probably see this happening in the DEI sphere as well. It's a way to manipulate money. We see it in small scales with Fortune 500 companies enriching organizations that one of their HR managers' siblings runs or something crazy like that. We see that happening all the time. But when it comes with taxpayer money and federal money, 55 million of which is going to recycling cleanups, something just feels off. It seems off. And I'm just going to take my gut feelings. I'm just going to listen to my gut feelings because they're usually right. Yeah? And speaking of gut feelings, somebody I have a bad gut feeling about is Tim Walz. I always have. I always will. This guy is a beta weenie. He is truly the weenie of my life right now. So that brings me to our final story, which is about Tim Walz. And also after that, I want to get into my debate predictions. And I want to hear yours as well. So Final story. The Washington Free Beacon uncovered an old video where Tim Walz claimed he was in Hong Kong when the Chinese Communist Party was indiscriminately killing students back in 1989 as part of the Tiananmen Square massacre. So here's a clip of Tim Walz saying he was in China.
As a young man, I was just going to teach high school in Foshan in Guangdong, and was in Hong Kong in May of '89. And as the events were unfolding, several of us went in, and I still remember the train station in Hong Kong. It was a large number, especially European, I think, very angry that we would still go after what had happened. But it was my belief at that time that the diplomacy was going to happen on many levels, certainly people to people, and the opportunity to be in a Chinese high school at that critical time seemed to me to be really important. And it was a very interesting summer, to say the least, because if you recall, as we moved in that summer and further on, and the news blackouts and things that went on, you certainly can't black out news from people if they want to get it. And I can still clearly remember the fall when the Berlin Wall fell and what was happening.
The problem here is that through extensive investigation, it was ultimately uncovered that Tim Walz was in Nebraska when he claimed to be in China. And in case the investigation was enough, there's also an article from April of 1989 saying that Tim Walz had accepted a volunteer teaching position in China and was leaving for that position in August, not April, which was after the Tiananmen Square massacre. I think when I hear these stories, one of the things that comes to my mind is like, how is it so easy for this guy to lie? You know, the left took so much umbrage with George Santos, and I'm not saying that Tim Walz is as bad as George Santos, but like George Santos he's being criminally prosecuted for lying and lying and lying. And yet we have no problem when Tim Walz lies. I'm not advocating for indicting the guy. I don't think his lies were nearly as bad as George Santos or nearly on the level, but they're not that far off. And the left just takes so much umbrage when it happens to somebody on the right. But when somebody on the left lies, it's no problem. Like, how can you be Kamala Harris and sit there and be like, Trump has an over-exaggeration problem, he's a liar, when your own VP pick is such a liar? But anyway, VP talk, that's what I want to be talking about now. Debate predictions. Drop yours in the comment if you can. I would love to hear your debate predictions. Or if you've already watched the debate because you're listening to this episode on a Wednesday or Thursday, or you're like missing me on Friday, the whole weekend, whatever, you need a dose of Chrissy, well then, let me know your debate thoughts. Post, right? So here are my initial thoughts. I am so over debates. I can tell you personally that I have a sushi reservation at 7, and that's where I'll be tonight. I won't be watching this. I will catch the highlights on Twitter or X or whatever. Don't get me wrong, and I will do my research. But even if I wasn't getting married this week, I still just wouldn't pay that much attention to this because these have become increasingly stupid. They're just they've increasingly become an opportunity for left-wing journalists to become part of the narrative. And so I think that this is already going to be incredibly slanted against JD Vance. And I can see that because I'm going through and I'm looking at some of the questions that it's anticipated the moderators are going to ask. And they're fucking stupid. Okay? First off, why Vance was spreading misinformation about the pet situation in Springfield, Ohio. I personally have debunked some of what was happening in Springfield, Ohio. As a conservative commentator, made no qualms about the fact that I thought what they were doing wasn't the best. On a national debate stage, do I care about what was happening with migrants in a small town? Like, this is such a... You have to be in the zeitgeist to understand it. And these debates are supposed to be for people who don't turn on politics regularly. They're not going to... Normal people don't understand the story. Normal people think that that they know about this whole debacle in a very small amount of information. They're not consuming this. And so the idea that JD Vance spread misinformation after Tim Walz lies and lies and lies and lies and lies is just a dumbass question, and you already know that they're going to ask that. It's already slanted. Another question they're going to ask. JD Vance, why have you made past remarks about Donald Trump? Why did Kamala Harris make past remarks about Biden and was able to be his VP perfectly fine? What a retarded question. That's so dumb. Like, you have to be mentally challenged to think that that is a good this is an opportunity to ask such a dumb question. JD Vance has also been interviewed so many times, I believe like 60 something plus times since he's been announced as the VP candidate back in June. And he has time and time again explained his change in heart over Donald Trump and his evolution in the last, like, how long has it been? Like 8 or 9 years since he first made those comments? If the media held Kamala Harris's feet to the fire over what she said in 2020, when she called Joe Biden racist or insinuated he was racist and then took on a role as his vice president, sure, by all stretch of the means, ask JD Vance this question, but they didn't do that. So don't come on the stage and ask people about, or use this as an opportunity to be like, actually, JD Vance hates Donald Trump. Because that's all you're doing. You're portraying your narrative to an audience that doesn't pay as much attention. And so I think this is slanted from the get-go. I don't trust these people. They're sucked ass at their job. They're not really interested in doing journalism. They're interested in pushing their narrative. And I'm kind of at a place where I understand why people don't want to do these debates anymore. I think it's imperative that we do them and we have them because it is necessary for our democracy. But journalists need to be actual journalists in order to be taken seriously and be granted with the opportunities for this. I really do see both sides of this. I think it's going to be a shit show tonight. I think Tim Walz is going to come off as sympathetic. I think JD Vance is a very confident man, and women are going to take umbrage with that because they don't like the idea that he comes across as like a confident alpha male. They're going to call him, yucky or whatnot. I just don't think it's going to play that well. So I'll be interested to see whether from the recaps or not, I'm right. But let me know your thoughts. Again, as a heads off, that would be quite the saying. As a heads up, I'm going to be off for the rest of the week. And I'm going to take off Monday. So yeah, I deserve it, guys. I'm going to go enjoy my wedding week and celebrating with my friends. And it feels really weird because when this podcast is over in like a couple of minutes, I'm out. Like, I'm out the door. I'm going to celebrate. It's crazy. But I'm going to be back Tuesday. The podcast is the first content I'm going to be making as a married woman. So yeah. Anyway, if you're a real one and you made it to the end of the show, will you drop the fire emoji in the comments and let me know your debate night predictions or thoughts if you watch this after the debate. Thank you guys so much. I'll see you here next time. Thanks so much for watching. If you liked what you heard, please be sure to give this video a thumbs up and leave a comment about how beautiful, stunning, and funny I am. And if you want more content based in logic, be sure to click over here for more videos and clips of my show. If you have the means to financially support the show, consider purchasing from my merch line, Based Apparel, linked right below. I really appreciate it, and I'll see you back here next time. Bye, friends.